2. In Xiao Yan's inner world, a pillar of fire was burning fiercely. Within the pillar of fire, a huge fire dragon that shook the world soared into the sky. The fire dragon was a scarlet golden color, and its dragon scales were glowing with a golden light. It was like the arrival of a fire god, bringing unparalleled visual shock. This is the true form of the Xiao Ao. Xiao Yan was startled by the appearance of the Xiao Ao. After pondering for a moment, he recalled the past life of the Xiao Ao. As a peerless holy beast that had once looked down on all regions, the current changes of the Xiao Ao were within reason. When he thought of this, Xiao Yan's originally despairing mood instantly turned for the better. In its place was endless joy. He didn't expect that the spirit of Heartflame would actually push the Xiao Ao to complete its evolution. With this, it shouldn't be difficult for him to defeat the spirit of Heartflame. The netherworld black flame crazily struggled in the Xiao Ao's abdomen. Ear-piercing roars of fury resounded in the air, and the voices were filled with resentment, like the prayers of the death god. The fire dragon was also roaring furiously, and its huge body was hovering in the air. The crimson golden light on the dragon's body flourished. The surging light gathered together, and in an instant, it had already entered the Xiao Ao's abdomen. The originally struggling dark black flame seemed to have been poured with cold water. In an instant, it calmed down a lot, and the vicious curses suddenly dissipated. When the dark black flame calmed down, the fire dragon's enormous body rapidly shrunk. Under Xiao Yan's shocked gaze, it turned into a cluster of scarlet-red fog. Within the fog, the size of the dark black flame continued to shrink, as if it was being continuously swallowed by the scarlet-red fog. At the same time, Xiao Yan felt a heat in his body. The monarch flame rushed out of his body uncontrollably, protecting the red mist as it fell to the ground. In an instant, a huge crater was created in the ground. As the dust settled, a huge red egg was quietly standing there. On the surface of the huge egg, dark black patterns strangely covered it. It seemed to be trembling slightly. The two monarch flames merged together and turned into Xiao Yi's. The latter landed on the huge egg. Both of his eyes were tightly shut, and his petite body was covered in golden flames. Two small hands were placed on the huge egg, and the crimson gold flame was continuously entering it in a strange way. As the crimson gold flame was inserted into the egg, the dark black flame on its surface trembled intensely. At the same time, it was also disappearing at a speed visible to the naked eye. Xiao Yan fell to the ground in a sorry state and looked at the huge egg in the deep pit. His eyes were filled with shock. When he first encountered the Xiao Ao in Forest Domain, the Xiao Ao had yet to reincarnate, and it was in the form of a huge egg. However, the huge egg had to transform into its most primitive form to protect him because of the severe injuries it had suffered. This time, it turned into a huge egg. Could it be that it had also suffered a serious injury that needed to be healed? Thinking of this, Xiao Yan's heart trembled violently. If that was really the case, he didn't have Elder Yi's extraordinary strength. Perhaps, he could only stare blankly at the egg. There was nothing he could do about it. The only thing that made Xiao Yan feel at ease was the faint connection between him and the Xiao Ao. Although the life form in the huge egg was in a state of extreme change, there wasn't any weak signal that could be sent out. This could be considered a slightly better news. After looking at the huge egg for a while and seeing that the Xiao Yi had no intention of waking up, Xiao Yan could only put his worries to the bottom of his heart and silently pray that the Xiao Ao was safe. Right now, he was unable to protect himself at all. However, the losses suffered by Black Sand Castle this time are really too great. A few Monarch Emperor were actually turned into ashes. Xiao Yan turned around and looked at the empty passageway. He let out a long sigh. This spirit of Heartflame was indeed terrifying. With just a little bit of effort, it was able to turn all the Monarch Emperor into ashes without any resistance. This was only after its strength had been greatly weakened. If its strength had reached its peak, it would be hard to imagine what would happen. No wonder the owner of this tomb had already dug out the tomb when it advanced to the monarch cultivation. As the fighting monarch of the lower realm, every advancement is a gamble of its life. Shaking his head silently, Xiao Yan shifted his gaze to the stone platform in the cave. On the stone platform, there was a medicine cauldron with a desolate chi. It was as stable as Mount Tai, and the stone platform was covered with dust. The surface of this medicine cauldron was extremely clean, and the surface of the light black cauldron was flickering with a dark black luster. The engravings on the medicine cauldron flowed slowly like blood, giving off a strange feeling. On the stone platform, besides this medicine cauldron, there were also 5 brocade boxes. The brocade boxes also seemed to have a strange protection. There was no dust on them, and the corrosion of time did not cause any harm to them. Although the spirit of Heartflame had been destroyed, Xiao Yan still cautiously walked into the stone cave. The stone cave was extremely vast, and it could not be seen from the outside. After entering the cave, a cave that could accommodate hundreds of people appeared. The surrounding stone walls were as smooth as if they were carved with knives and axes. Seeing this, Xiao Yan couldn't help but exclaim in his heart about the extraordinary abilities of an emperor cultivation warrior. With his own abilities, he was able to open up such a huge tomb underground. The coffin was lying quietly behind the stone platform. Xiao Yan walked closer and saw that the coffin was connected to a bottomless cave. The spirit of Heartflame just now had crawled out from this cave, and he had no idea where it was down there. After thinking for a while, Xiao Yan gave up on the idea of going down to take a look. With his current strength, he would have to be very careful when fighting a Monarch Emperor level opponent. If he had another spirit of Heartflame, without the help of the Xiao Ao, there would be nothing he could do. Xiao Yan laid his eyes on the medicine cauldron on the stone platform. He slowly stretched out his hand. When his palm touched the surface of the cauldron, a faint warmth immediately came from his palm, bringing along a warm feeling. With a soft sigh, Xiao Yan looked over again. When his hand touched a small concave spot on the surface of the cauldron, a few vigorous characters that were as small as mosquitoes and flies were engraved on it. The Cauldron of One Day, Blood Night. The Cauldron of One Day? When Xiao Yan saw the words on the surface of the cauldron, he was overjoyed. This medicine cauldron actually belonged to the Heaven Cauldron. According to what Elder Yi said, to refine a tier 6 and above medicine pill, a Heaven Cauldron was the most basic material. Only a Heaven Cauldron could withstand the violent strength of a tier 6 and above medicine pill. However, the number of medicine pills was extremely small. A one-day cauldron was much more valuable than a heavenly weapon. It was completely priceless. Suppressing his excitement, Xiao Yan tried to inject his soul energy into the Blood Night cauldron. The moment his soul energy entered the cauldron, a few blood carvings on the surface of the cauldron seemed to come alive. They quickly circulated around the cauldron. At the same time, a blood-red world suddenly appeared in Xiao Yan's soul world. Tianding Realm. In the blood-red world, the moment Xiao Yan's soul energy entered, 2 words slowly emerged. It was grand and majestic, and it carried a soul-stirring power. After the blood-red world, it was like a boundless night. The darkness that shook one's heart and mind seemed to have opened up an unknown world, crushing the endless starry sky. This is the Heaven Cauldron. Sensing the extraordinariness of this endless world, Xiao Yan couldn't help but take a deep breath. This was the true pill cauldron, only the atmosphere. The blood-red world carried Yu Yi, who was black to the bone, and crushed thousands of stars. Carrying the ancient aura, it rolled towards Xiao Yan's soul consciousness. Sensing this vast aura, Xiao Yan couldn't help but break out in cold sweat. He didn't expect the Heaven Cauldron to have its own world. This ability was comparable to the Saint-grade Monarch skill. Rumble. When Xiao Yan carefully probed the world within the cauldron, a voice that directly struck his soul suddenly exploded in his mind. After that, an extremely ancient voice slowly sounded. The heavy and carefree tone mixed together, making him feel inexplicably uncomfortable. How many years has it been? Finally, someone has come. Fortunately, my soul energy was sealed within the Blood Night Heaven Cauldron, allowing me to endure until now. Otherwise, it would have dissipated a long time ago. An ancient voice resounded in Xiao Yan's soul perception. There seemed to be a trace of relief in his voice. I have broken through to the next realm for the fighting monarch of lower realm, and by chance. My soul force has become the soul of the great world through the 3-step soul transfer of a senior. After that, after going through endless difficulties and obstacles, I was lucky enough to reach the Monarch Emperor. I only broke through to the Emperor cultivation after a narrow escape, but I know. With my abilities, if I want to break through to the Monarch cultivation. Therefore, before I break through, all of this was done in advance, and as expected, it failed. The ancient voice let out a long sigh. It carried a sense of sadness, which made Xiao Yan feel the same way. The heart flame burning is too difficult for the fighting monarch of lower realm. If breaking through to the Emperor cultivation from the monarch emperor is a narrow escape, then there will be less than 100 Emperor cultivation warriors breaking through to the monarch cultivation. It's hard to imagine how much luck it will take for a monarch cultivation warrior to break through to the heavenly sovereign, or even the saint realm. The ancient voice paused for a moment, then it turned and said slowly, "Since someone had come here. This is also fate." The 5 brocade boxes on the stone platform contain some items that I have collected over the years. Although they are valuable, they are just ordinary items compared to this Blood Knight Heaven Cauldron. He exhaled a breath of air and said with a bitter smile, "However, this Heaven Cauldron. Due to me refining the spirit of heart flame that advanced from the monarch emperor to the emperor cultivation back then, I fused it into the Heaven Cauldron. Therefore, if I really want to master this Heaven Cauldron, only the fighting monarch of lower realm could once again refine the spirit of heart flame that allowed me to break through to the emperor cultivation. Only by merging with it would it be possible. Therefore, if it was a resident of a great world, this Heaven Cauldron has no effect on you all. Take it out. You can sell some monarch crystals, hee hee." Xiao Yan raised his eyebrows when he heard this, then he laughed lightly. He never thought that this Heaven Cauldron would have the authority to use it. That thing was perfect for him. I don't have much left of my soul energy left. If the things I left behind can benefit the younger generation, it will be a great contribution to me. What a pity. What a pity. The ancient voice became softer and softer until it completely disappeared. Only a deep sigh lingered in Xiao Yan's mind. Was it the regret of not advancing to the monarch cultivation, or the regret of the fighting monarch of lower realm? After withdrawing his soul energy from the Blood Knight Cauldron, Xiao Yan pursed his lips. He was silent for a long time before he finally let out a soft sigh. He turned around and bowed deeply towards the bronze coffin tomb. As for this fighting monarch that had also entered the lower realm, although he didn't know his name, he still had the courage to move forward and not give up. It had become the pride of the fighting monarch of lower realm, even if it died. He would fight with his life on the line. Although Xiao Yan wanted to explore the Blood Knight Heaven Cauldron, with his current situation, without the Xiao Yi or the Xiao Ao to monitor the outside world, it was obviously not suitable for him to fully immerse himself in it. Retracting his gaze from the bronze coffin tomb in front of him, Xiao Yan turned around and looked at the 5 brocade boxes on the stone platform. He heard from the senior that there were some of his collections here, so it must be quite precious for them to be placed here. The 4 brocade boxes lay quietly on the stone platform. The surface of the boxes was emitting a faint fluorescent light. The size of the brocade boxes was not large, only the size of a palm. However, they were a few inches deep and could store some things. Taking a deep breath, Xiao Yan stretched out his hand and picked up the first brocade box. He was about to open it when he thought about it. A layer of origin monarch chi appeared on his hands. Nearly 10,000 years had passed. Although the things inside could be preserved, they were definitely not ordinary items. However, it was hard to say whether some precious medicinal herbs would turn to ashes in an instant when they met the air. Xiao Yan had encountered this kind of thing many times. He opened the brocade box in his hand and the origin monarch chi instantly surrounded it. In order to prevent the air from entering, Xiao Yan composed himself and looked inside. There was nothing else in the brocade box except a bamboo slip. The bamboo slip was made from dozens of bamboo slips, and it was full of tiny characters. It was densely packed and neat. The words seemed to have a special spiritual aura that covered the entire bamboo slip. It prevented the bamboo slip from being eroded by the passage of time. Xiao Yan frowned and carefully took out the bamboo slip. He looked at the top of the bamboo slip and saw a few bold words dancing on it. Comprehension of heart flame burning. The big characters took up nearly 1/3 of the area of the bamboo slip, making it extremely eye-catching. Looking at this, his eyes swept across the dozen or so small seal characters on the bamboo slips once again. Xiao Yan's heart immediately started beating intensely, and a trace of wild joy emerged from the bottom of his heart. This thing was undoubtedly a timely help to him. It was difficult for him to break through to the Emperor cultivation from the Monarch Emperor. Although it wasn't something he needed to consider urgently, it was an unerasable worry in his heart. He would have to face it sooner or later. Now that he had this thing. This also meant that he had a solid layer of protection on his way to the Emperor cultivation. It wouldn't be an exaggeration to say that he had gained an extra life. Xiao Yan put the bamboo slip into the brocade box with joy. He carefully put it into his storage ring. Although he had almost died in the tomb this time, it was already worthwhile for him to be able to obtain a heaven cauldron and his comprehension of the heart flame burning, not to mention other things. He had witnessed the good stuff in the first brocade box. This thing was worthless to the original residents, but to him, it was equivalent to saving his life. After calming down his excited mood, Xiao Yan had some expectations for the other 4 brocade boxes. He picked up the second brocade box and opened it. A few strange herbs and a dark black medicine pill were lying quietly inside. At the bottom of the brocade box was a bamboo slip as thin as a cicada's wing. There were only a few words on the bamboo slip. Xiao Yan's eyes swept over these medicinal ingredients and could not help but exclaim. These medicinal ingredients were all rare and even extremely rare treasures. Any one of them was sufficient to cause many alchemists to go crazy. That dark black medicine pill seemed to emit a somewhat familiar aura from it. Xiao Yan carefully picked up the bamboo slip from the bottom of the brocade box. He carefully looked at it. After he finished looking at it, he could not help but take a deep breath. A fiery heat instantly surged into his eyes. There were some things that had increased Xiao Yan's confidence in the heart flame burning that he needed to experience to advance from the monarch emperor to the emperor cultivation. After going through the heart flame burning, if I take the essence protecting pill, the success rate will be 30% or 50%. In the past, I searched all the regions and found 4 sets of herbs to concoct the essence protecting pill. I concocted 3 of them, took 2 of them and was lucky enough to succeed. As for the remaining 1 and the herbs, I will leave it to someone who is fated to be in the lower realm. These few words immediately caused Xiao Yan to become excited. The highest success rate was 50%, and the failure rate of the heart flame burning could be said to be unbelievable. The things left behind by this Emperor Cultivation Senior were completely benefiting the lower realm's backfighting monarch. After putting away the brocade box excitedly, Xiao Yan's gaze finally shifted to the other 3 brocade boxes. After all, there were only a few fighting monarch of lower realms in the great world. The things in these 2 brocade boxes were useless to the original residents. In that case, the remaining 3 brocade boxes should be something that everyone could use. Was it a monarch crystal or a spirit weapon? Or was it a monarch skill? One in the deep underground cave, there was a cool breeze from time to time. Combined with the dim lighting, the broken arm on the ground, and the huge egg in the deep hole in the cave, it made this place extremely strange and made people feel a chill in their hearts. Xiao Yan calmed his mind and picked up the 3rd brocade box covered with origin monarch cheese. He slowly opened the lid. In the brocade box, there was a sword hilt engraved with strange patterns lying quietly. There was no blade, and there were no traces of the blade breaking where the sword hilt was. On the sword hilt, even after 10,000 years, there was still abundant spiritual energy flowing. A frightening aura surged out from it, causing Xiao Yan to vaguely see an ancient weapon that was trying to drink the remaining blood. He took out the hilt of the sword and held it tightly in his hand. A slight tingling sensation immediately came from his palm, as if it would directly hit his soul. The moment Xiao Yan held the hilt of the sword, he was in a trance. Even someone as strong as a middle period of alien stage soul felt uncomfortable. What a strange thing. He looked at the sword hilt in his hand with some surprise. There were mysterious patterns engraved on the sword hilt, which was quite strange. Xiao Yan held the sword hilt and pondered for a while. He tried to slowly infuse the boundless origin monarch chi into it. A weapon that could be specially left behind by an emperor cultivation warrior must have at least reached the level of a heavenly weapon. Naturally, it could not be controlled with common sense. In order to control it, he might need to infuse his blood essence into it. Just as Xiao Yan was deep in thought, the origin monarch chi had already been injected into the sword hilt in his hand. In an instant, the sword hilt flashed with a strange light. In the next moment, along the hilt of the sword, a blade of light suddenly extended out, forming a complete sword with the hilt. The moment the blade of light appeared, Xiao Yan's mind buzzed, and his back was instantly covered with sweat. This sudden and violent aura made him break out in a cold sweat. What exactly is this? Looking at the light sword in his hand, Xiao Yan sucked in a breath of cold air. He couldn't help but look in the direction the light sword was pointing at. There was a deep and invisible gap there. It was caused by the sharp sword qi the moment the light sword appeared. If this power hit a human's body, perhaps even the monarch emperor level expert would be able to kill him in an instant. Seeing that there was nothing else in the brocade box, Xiao Yan did not know the origin of this sword of light. After thinking for a while, the origin monarch qi in his hand suddenly disappeared. The sword blade that was spat out from the sword hilt also disappeared, as if it had never appeared. Xiao Yan clicked his tongue in surprise. He carefully placed the sword hilt into the brocade box and put it away. No matter what it was, it did not matter. It was definitely a divine weapon. There was no doubt about it. Just a single sword qi was enough to shatter a rock. This kind of strength had completely exceeded the scope of the spirit weapon. After obtaining a heavenly weapon of unknown grade, the smile on Xiao Yan's face became brighter and brighter. Sure enough, this trip wasn't a fluke. The things he obtained had exceeded his expectations, including that unknown heavenly weapon. The things in these 3 brocade boxes were no longer something that could be obtained with money in the outside world. He turned his eyes to the remaining 2 brocade boxes. Without any hesitation, he picked one up and opened it. There was only a dark black storage ring inside. There was some rust on the storage ring. Clearly, it had experienced this for quite some time. Xiao Yan could not help but feel some anticipation in his heart as he gently caressed this storage ring. What he needed now were monarch crystals and heavenly cores. There should be something that he needed within this storage ring. After all, it was something that an emperor cultivation warrior would hide for the rest of his life. Spiritual strength surged out from between his brows. He probed the storage ring in his hand. He did not encounter any hindrance as his spiritual strength had already successfully entered it. What appeared in his mind was a huge space. Other than some neatly arranged brocade boxes, there was nothing else. It made sense. 10,000 years had passed. Most of these things had long since decayed, and only some true treasures were able to resist the corrosion of time and circulate eternally. Most of the extremely precious herbs in the storage ring had decayed. Perhaps the owner of the tomb never thought that this tomb would be sealed for 10,000 years. Xiao Yan carefully looked at it. Finally, he let out a bitter laugh. Originally, there were many treasures within the storage ring that could cause one to go crazy. However, now, they had all decayed and ceased to exist. The medicinal ingredients and spirit weapons that were arranged neatly had quietly disappeared after Xiao Yan's soul touched them. There was not a trace of them left behind. Only the white jade bottle at the bottom was still stubbornly flickering with a faint fluorescent light. Xiao Yan rejoiced in his heart. He carefully used his spiritual strength to take out the white jade bottle. The white jade bottle appeared in his hand. The fluorescent light on it instantly became much dimmer. Even with the protection of the origin monarch qi, some invisible erosion immediately appeared on the white jade bottle. After opening the white jade bottle, a strange scent was immediately emitted. Xiao Yan could not help but frown slightly when he sensed this scent. There was actually a hot scent within this scent, as if there was a flame burning within it. He moved his gaze closer and saw dozens of crimson-red medicine pills lying within. It had been 10,000 years since he last saw them, and it had been 10,000 years since he last saw them. There was still a strange pill fragrance being emitted, causing one to feel relaxed, and a wave of heat could be felt coming from within one's body. He looked around the white jade bottle and saw that there were no hints at all. Xiao Yan was also clueless about the use of this bottle of medicine pill. He sighed and kept the white jade bottle into his own storage ring. There were many treasures in the storage ring left by the tomb's owner, but now, only a few medicine pills remained. There were no other monarch crystals or spirit weapons left behind. Sighing helplessly, Xiao Yan looked at the last brocade box on the stone platform. He had no idea what was inside it that was beyond his expectations. Just as he was about to reach out his hand to grab it, a loud cracking sound was heard all of a sudden, causing Xiao Yan's extended hand to stop immediately. A strong light burst out from his eyes. The loud sound seemed to have come from the egg. He immediately threw his gaze into the deep pit in front of him. Spiderweb-like cracks began to appear on the surface of the huge egg in the deep pit. The cracks continued to expand along with the cracking sound. As the cracks expanded, crimson gold flames would jump out from the cracks from time to time, as if they were welcoming the return of a king. On top of the huge egg, the Xiao Yi also opened its eyes. Its delicate face was filled with fatigue. With a light Yi, the Xiao Yi turned into a ball of flame and quickly entered Xiao Yan's body like a meteor. Sensing that the Xiao Yi was fine, Xiao Yan's nervous mood calmed down a little. After that, he immediately focused all of his attention on the huge egg. At this moment, the surface of the huge egg was covered with cracks. A large number of origin monarch Qis were crazily entering the egg. At the same time, a powerful Qi instantly rose. In just a moment, it had already surpassed the Emperor realm, and had reached the monarch emperor. Ka! Under Xiao Yan's nervous gaze, a sound that could shake the entire tomb suddenly sounded out. In the next moment, the huge egg exploded. Strangely, the fragments didn't shoot out in all directions. Instead, they quietly floated in the air, as if they were waiting for something. "Oh-woo!" After a moment of silence, a lazy yawn suddenly sounded from the center of the explosion. As the smoke dispersed, the figure of a little boy with short red hair slowly appeared. The little boy was naked and had delicate features. At a glance, he was very likable. His big eyes revealed a trace of slyness. He looked at the dumbstruck Xiao Yan and couldn't help but laugh. His laughter was as clear as silver bells and resounded throughout the cave. Too, the little boy glanced at Xiao Yan, whose face was filled with shock. He chuckled and curled his lips. The little boy turned his gaze to the eggshell fragments floating in the air. With a wave of his hand, hundreds of fragments of different sizes flew into the air. With a storm, these fragments entered the little boy's body in an instant. When the smoke dissipated, the little boy jumped up and stood in front of Xiao Yan naked. His hands were on his waist, and his little face was full of pride and joy. His funny expression combined with his strange appearance made Xiao Yan unable to hold back his laughter for a moment. The little boy did not have any other thoughts about his naked body. He happily ran in front of Xiao Yan and smiled. There were light dimples on his cute little face, making him look very cute when he smiled. The little boy's height reached Xiao Yan's nose. He was about 11 or 12 years old. He had short red hair, and he could vaguely feel flames burning on his hair. Although his body was small, the power contained in his hair shocked Xiao Yan. Looking at the boy in front of him, Xiao Yan's throat was dry. He swallowed his saliva and did not know what to say for a moment. This little boy, could it be that he was the human body after the evolution of the Xiao Ao? While Xiao Yan was in a trance, the little boy said crisply, "Xiao Yan, what do you think about my human form?" His tone was filled with pride and pride. His pure and innocent heart, which was like a child's, was revealed at this moment. Xiao Yan came back to his senses and looked at the little boy. He endured the thought of pinching the little boy's chubby face. He nodded sincerely. This fellow really knew how to change. His appearance was even more delicate and cute than some girls. If it wasn't for the little earthworm between his legs, Xiao Yan would really suspect that this guy was a girl. After hearing Xiao Yan's words, the little boy's eyes instantly curved into a pair of crescent teeth. The dimples on his face became even more obvious. Then, he took out an eggshell fragment from somewhere and took a bite with a smile. The eggshell fragment instantly turned into an extremely pure energy and entered his body. Looking at the little boy's innocent smile, Xiao Yan couldn't help but feel a sense of pity in his heart. In its place was endless gratification. He had experienced countless disasters. This little guy had finally transformed into a dragon and turned into a human body. This also meant that from now on, he would have someone who could really talk. As for Xiao Yan, who had always regarded the Xiao Ao as his family, regarding the changes in the Xiao Ao, Xiao Yan was more delighted. He took a big bite of the eggshell fragment in his hand and the Xiao Ao frowned. Although this was his companion energy and it would be very helpful to him if he ate it, it tasted like chewing wax in the shape of an eggshell and did not taste delicious at all. After barely swallowing the energy in his mouth, the Xiao Ao looked at the black shirt on Xiao Yan's body. He looked at his own body and rolled his eyes. It pouted and said crisply, "Xiao Yan, last time in the Purple Radiance sect, I saw a young lady who was as naked as me. But she wanted to hit me. Is it not good for her to be naked?" Upon hearing the Xiao Ao, he was filled with childish innocence. Xiao Yan couldn't help but laugh out loud. After pondering for a moment, he took out a piece of clothing from his interspatial storage ring and helplessly smiled. "This is the only clothes left. Put it on and try it on. I can't let you go out naked, right?" Seeing the clothes in Xiao Yan's hand, the Xiao Ao's eyes lit up. After taking the clothes, it couldn't wait to put them on. Seeing the clothes on the Xiao Ao, Xiao Yan couldn't help but laugh out loud. It was as if he was wearing a large robe. Sweeping his sleeve, the Xiao Ao looked at the black robe on his body with delight. Its big eyes were filled with joy. Now, can you remember your name? After pondering for a moment, Xiao Yan asked tentatively. After all, the Xiao Ao was a top-tier holy beast that could shake the world when it was alive. Even if it was reborn, the memories of its past life would only be sealed. As its strength increased, the memories that were sealed in the depths of its bloodline would gradually recover. Whether it was its disposition or personality, it would quietly change to its original appearance when it was alive. And this time, the Xiao Ao was even more so Long Teng Jushin. It transformed into its original form when it was alive, and directly transformed into a human form. Presumably, the memories in the depths of its bloodline had already recovered a lot. Name? The Xiao Ao, who was laughing and laughing, was stunned when it heard this. It gave Xiao Yan a strange look. He muttered, "Didn't you call me that for a long time? Why are you asking me? Also, the name you gave me was too casual. You didn't put in any effort at all." At the end of his words, the Xiao Ao was already somewhat displeased. It rolled its eyes at Xiao Yan. Its voice was clear, and it said angrily. When Xiao Yan heard this, for some reason, his heart inexplicably relaxed. The Xiao Ao was still the original Xiao Ao. There was no change at all. With a light smile, Xiao Yan thought for a moment, then suddenly smiled and said, "All right, I'll give you a careful name. How about you follow my surname from now on? Xiao Ao." Upon hearing this, the Xiao Ao curled its lips and snorted. "What is it? It doesn't sound any different from before." The Xiao Ao muttered with dissatisfaction. Suddenly, it sniffed with its nose. It made a light sound and cast its gaze towards the stone platform beside Xiao Yan. It didn't even look at the heaven cauldron. Instead, it stared fixedly at the last brocade box. Xiao Yan curiously looked at the remaining brocade box when he saw the Xiao Ao's gaze. Could it be that there was something even better inside? Even the Xiao Ao was surprised by it. After hesitating for a moment, he picked up the brocade box and handed it to the Xiao Ao. Since the latter had an extraordinary reaction towards it, perhaps the thing inside would be of greater help to him. If the Xiao Ao could be strengthened, it could also be considered as increasing his strength in a different way. It would be best to use it to its fullest potential. Instead of being covered in dust in his hands, it would be better to let the Xiao Ao play a greater role. Receiving the brocade box from Xiao Yan, the Xiao Ao smiled at Xiao Yan. Before Xiao Yan could remind him, he could not wait to open the box of the brocade box. After seeing the contents of the brocade box, the originally smiling face froze. Then, he helplessly curled his lips, although he was reluctant to part with it. He still threw it to Xiao Yan. Obviously, although this thing was suitable for him, it hadn't reached the stage where it could completely move him. Xiao Yan curiously took the brocade box and threw his gaze into it. A strange ore the size of a palm was quietly lying inside. The ore was a mysterious color, and there were a few flashes of spiritual light on it from time to time. It looked quite mysterious. Upon closer inspection, there was actually an extremely vague and complicated ancient font on the ore. The font seemed to be a natural Great Tao ultimate pattern. With just a glance, Xiao Yan could already feel his heart trembling. However, this font seemed to be missing something, causing him to feel extremely uncomfortable. He let out a breath of cold air. Xiao Yan looked over and used his soul power to easily resist the inexplicable aura coming from the ore. After a while, he suddenly had a thought. It was as if he had seen this flaw somewhere before. It was the flaw in this corner that caused this piece of broken ore to give off an indescribable feeling of discomfort. It was as if his soul had been struck, and his soul power was not enough to eliminate this feeling. This thing. Xiao Yan pursed his lips. Suddenly, his blurred expression was swept away. A blazing ray of light suddenly burst out from his eyes. That's right, he had really seen this incomplete corner before. With this thought in mind, Xiao Yan flipped his palm and a black-colored ore the size of a fingernail appeared on it. Its texture was exactly the same as the ore in the brocade box. The moment this small piece of ore appeared, a shocking roar erupted from the entire cave, as if the star moon was trembling. Meteor shower. 2. This fingernail-sized black-colored ore was the heavenly core that Master Mo had gifted Xiao Yan when he was selling Crimson Fire Flame Wolves in the Black Sand Castle auction. Initially, he thought that it was a very rare ore. Unexpectedly, at this moment, it had an extraordinary reaction with the ore in the brocade box. Following the sudden ringing of the star moon, not only Xiao Yan, even the Xiao Ao widened its eyes in surprise. This strange buzzing sound came from the ore in the brocade box. Although it wasn't loud, it caused the entire cave to shake slightly. Kai. While Xiao Yan was in shock, the small ore in his hand trembled slightly. It used a strange force to break free from Xiao Yan's restraints and instantly rushed into the brocade box. It seamlessly merged with the brocade box within. At the instant the two profound ore of different sizes were complemented, the cryptic and difficult to understand words on the profound ore seemed to have a spirit of their own. Although it was still extremely blurry, Xiao Yan could vaguely make out this word. That word seemed to be the word, star. Other than that, there were only mysterious patterns and no hints regarding this thing. However, since any Emperor Cultivation Senior could put this thing here, it wasn't without reason. This black mine, it might have unimaginable power, but with his current strength, it was impossible for him to understand it in depth. While Xiao Yan was frowning and looking at the black ore in the brocade box, the Xiao Ao's expression suddenly changed. For the first time, a trace of seriousness appeared on its delicate face. It said anxiously, "Xiao Yan, let's go. This place seems to be collapsing." After being pulled back to reality by the Xiao Ao's words, Xiao Yan came back to his senses and quickly looked around. He could not help but be shocked. Following that strange buzzing sound, the stone cave began to sway. The fist-sized rocks on the surrounding walls seemed to be about to fall down at any moment. "Hurry up and leave." His gaze swept across the interior of the stone cave. Other than the unknown coffin tomb, there was nothing else. With a wave of his hand, he had already stored the brocade box and the Blood Knight Heaven Cauldron beside him into his storage ring. He spoke in a deep voice. At the same time, he had already rushed out of the cave. The Xiao Ao did not slow down in the slightest. With a flash of its body, it followed closely behind Xiao Yan. Suddenly, as if it had sensed something, the Xiao Ao's body suddenly stopped. It turned around and looked at the bronze coffin tomb behind the stone platform. Its small face was filled with doubt, and a trace of confusion flashed across its eyes. Boom! In the next moment, along with the gradually dissipating buzzing sound, the stone cave collapsed with a loud bang, covering everything. It also interrupted the Xiao Ao's gaze. He pouted. The Xiao Ao withdrew his gaze. He waved his long sleeve and his body rushed forward like a lightning. He easily caught up with Xiao Yan's footsteps. As he shuttled through the tunnel, Xiao Yan's gaze paused. He saw a broken arm not far away. The blood on the broken arm had already solidified. The entire arm was grayish-black and had become scarlet red and stiff. This severed arm was cut off by Chen Rong before he died. He originally wanted to force out the spirit of heart flame that had entered his body from the wound, but he was still turned into ashes and vanished into thin air. He rushed to the front of the broken arm, and just as Xiao Yan was about to leap over it, his eyes twitched, and he focused his attention on the 5 fingers of the broken arm. A ghost head storage ring was placed on his index finger, flashing with a dim light. Without much thought, Xiao Yan had already picked up the broken arm. With lightning-like speed, he stripped off the storage ring on his finger. At any rate, it was left behind by a Monarch Emperor-level expert. There should be quite a number of good things within it. Although he had found many priceless treasures in this tomb, Xiao Yan still felt some regret in his heart. After all, he had not seen the most direct Monarch crystal, let alone the heavenly core. His plan to realize the other 2 parts of the Holy Rank trial had been completely destroyed. Xiao Yan and the Xiao Ao rushed forward with all their strength. The tunnel behind them also quickly collapsed. Rocks of different sizes poured down like a heavy rain, and the rumbling sounds of explosions never stopped. With the 2 of them running with all their strength, the underground tunnel quickly reached its end. When they raised their heads to look, a faint light could be seen. That was the exit of the tomb. Seeing Xiao Yan scratching his ears and cheeks, the Xiao Ao beside him pouted and said with a mischievous smile, "You want to go out? I'll bring you out." As he spoke, a red light surged on his body. In the blink of an eye, his entire body was covered by the red light. The Xiao Ao in the center waved its wide sleeve and its petite body began to rise. Seeing the Xiao Ao's actions, Xiao Yan quickly reacted from his initial shock. After that, he was overjoyed. It seemed like the aura that this fellow had released just now wasn't fake. He had really reached the Monarch Emperor, and he could now use the Origin Monarch Chi to transform into a pair of wings and fly into the sky. However, the Xiao Ao could fly just by relying on the energy within its body. This ability was something that even some emperor cultivation experts were unable to achieve. Currently, the strength of the Xiao Ao had completely reached a new level. However, he did not know how its true strength was. After grabbing Xiao Yan's arm, the Xiao Ao's body soared into the sky. Within a few breaths' time, it had already rushed out of the underground cave and ascended into the vast plains. The instant the two of them rushed out of the cave, the ground collapsed. The dozens of huge rocks that were guarding this place also shattered with a loud bang. This piece of land, it instantly merged with the entire desert. There was nothing special about it. It also announced everything about that emperor cultivation warrior. It was all because of him that he disappeared. In the vast history of the world, it was like an insignificant grain of sand had been abandoned here. Xiao Yan stood on the ground and clenched his fist. He looked at the desert under his feet with a complicated expression. Finally, he raised his head to look at the sky and let out a long sigh. Perhaps, this was the world. He turned his head and looked in the direction he came from. There was no trace of the huge black sand castle at this moment. In this vast world, everything was shrinking infinitely. After a while, Xiao Yan shook his head with a bitter smile. This time, all the experts in Black Sand Castle had been killed. All the top experts had died in the tomb. It seemed like Black Sand Castle would welcome a huge change in blood in the near future. Xiao Yan withdrew his gaze and looked at the Xiao Ao that was flying in the sky due to excitement. He laughed lightly and took out the ghost head storage ring that was taken from Chen Rong's arm. In any case, it was still a Monarch Emperor level expert, let alone a Monarch Emperor level expert that could survive. A Monarch Emperor in this kind of situation would definitely have a lot of wealth. Xiao Yan's brows trembled slightly as he thought of this. Powerful soul force flowed out from his brows and easily broke through the weak defense of the storage ring in his hand. Without the protection of his master's origin Monarch Qi, this kind of defense could be said to be weak and unable to withstand the wind. Xiao Yan's spiritual strength had just entered the storage ring when he was attracted by the mountain-like monarch crystals. He was a little stunned as he looked at the monarch crystals that were like a small hill. Xiao Yan could not help but be overjoyed. From a rough look, these monarch crystals should be in the millions. Adding the monarch crystals that he originally had, it was likely that those 10 million monarch crystals were already enough to gather. Xiao Yan chuckled as he shifted his gaze away from the pile of Xiao Yans. He once again looked at the other places within the storage ring. He did not discover any heavenly cores, causing Xiao Yan to feel a little regretful. In the next moment, a pile of neatly arranged books attracted Xiao Yan's attention. With a thought, Xiao Yan's soul power quickly surged over and swept across the pile. The corner of Xiao Yan's mouth couldn't help but reveal a trace of a smile. The 4 colors of the scrolls on the top of the pile were gorgeous. They were white, red, black, and green in a strange pattern. On the top of the scroll, there were 4 flamboyant and graceful characters. 4 Spirit Emperor Technique. Quote,